One is to ensure that people do apply critical thinking. But obviously, we're only human. We make mistakes. But critical thinking skill is very important, and we underline this in every training we have, and we search specifically for this skill when we're hiring talent.
Welcome to Tech Talks, hosted by myself, David Savage, and powered by Nash Squared. On today's show, I am joined by Gosha, who is the Chief People Officer at Impress, joining me from Barcelona. And to help me talk about this particular interview, the release of our documentary on Monday, and also the fact that today, as of recording, because we're recording this on Thursday, the 5th of March, it is World Book Day. There's lots to chat about. Hi, Sam.
No way, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Let's start with that. Like, favorite books.
Favorite books in my teens and like when I started uni, it used to be Catcher in the Rye. I know that's like really pretentious. I think
it is quite pretentious,
and like very classic for that time. I wouldn't say that's probably the now.
Were you kind of like a cool deep thinker kind of wannabe?
Like one of those, right?
God.
I would say that I've got into more non-fiction as I've got older.
Right.
I was a pretty kind of like adamant fiction person, and actually I've started to really appreciate non-fiction travel writing, ironically, even though
Bill Bryson? Ever read any Bill Bryson?
I have a little bit. I have to say I'm not a fan.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, we are falling out.
He's a big hitter. I know. Controversial. I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was, and this is coming from me, but I thought he was quite pessimistic about a lot of stuff.
Hang, which
and I
did
can't
you read?
talk. I read Travels Around Europe, that one, or whatever that one's called.
Okay.
He did like a travel around Europe, and he was just complaining about all the different countries, mostly.
I found him hilarious.
Maybe I can try him again. I could try him on something else because I know he's got a bunch of stuff that's not about travel.
Yeah,
so
well, you know that Notes on a Small Island, his book about Britain, is like was voted the best book about Britain by the British public.
Okay.
And yes, he does. He has written quite a few that are non-travel. So, Life and Times of the Thunderbolt Kid is about growing up in 1950s, 60s America. Short History of Nearly Everything.
Short History of Nearly Everything. I'm going to try him again. I get all of my stuff from the local library, and they have all of his books.
I have all of his books.
You have all of his books.
Borrow them from. I adore Bill Bryson. I walked the Pennine Way when I was in my mid-20s because I loved A Walk in the Woods about walking the Appalachian Trail so much.
I did want to try that one. That one sounded really interesting, and also
brilliant.
Just something that I know obviously absolutely nothing about. I've never been.
He spends most of his time terrified about bears.
I feel like the bears is the least you have to worry about on the Appalachian Trail from the things I've heard.
It's
much
brilliant book.
Scarier than bears. But no, yeah, non-fiction. Okay. I'll give it a go. I read a lot of stuff about planes. I like planes. So pilot memoirs.
Spoiler alert, guys. Sam is a plane nerd. Do you want to show everyone what you've been building?
It's a video episode. So this is my most recent Red Arrow. I built and painted this. And I currently have a P-51 Mustang on the go. So maybe I'll find a community. Maybe there'll be some people that are in tech and
don't worry.
happen to sit on the side.
If we're doing nerd off, easy to. I don't think it's.
You can compete with me. You've just ordered a Game Boy.
Oh, that's not the nerdy thing that I was looking for. I mean, I was looking in the cupboard where I've got lots of board games, but I've also got Warhammer models.
Oh, come on.
That's like almost Dungeons and Dragons level of nerd.
That's a step above. Yeah, like I've got a tiny paintbrush here to paint mine, and I'm sure you've done worse than that.
Oh yeah, when I was a teenager, I was yeah.
With the light glasses and the headlamp and the.
I'm a proper sci-fi fantasy nerd. I greatly enjoyed a book called The Raven Scholar at the beginning of this year. If anyone's looking for a good recommendation, this is a lovely segue, by the way. I was sent this week.
Yes.
Aspirationally Idle. which is a book by Martin Sadler, who is a friend of Crimson, of Nash Squared. I think,
Hmm.
have I had him on the podcast? If not, he's going to be coming on the podcast soon. He's written a book all about an approach to digital leadership. But Martin could have been a stand-up comedian, so it's not particularly thick. It's nice travel sized. It's 132 pages.
Oh, yeah,
So I feel like this is something that I'm going to quite happily kind of get stuck into without feeling like it's. Yeah, I'm not the biggest when it comes to non-fiction. Like I like Bill Bryson, as we've said. I'm more of a
yeah,
fiction fan.
sure.
So non-fiction tends to be a bit of a, all right, here we go. But I feel like this is bite-sizey. So I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
getting stuck into this. And thank you, Martin, for sending it through.
pocket size as well. The train and, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
always delayed on my train route, so I'm always standing on platforms and things like that. I
Well,
always find like a
as you
little.
said, if you're delayed on the train,
This was
there's the
a
Game
this
Boy
was
with
an
Pokemon Blue.
attempt. This was an attempt to stop doom scrolling, right? This
Yeah,
was
exactly. We
yeah,
talked about it on a recent show. Anyway,
yeah.
sorry, this has
Heck,
got very enthusiastic about all of this. World Book Day. If you're enjoying World Book Day yesterday, given it's now Friday, but
Mm,
as we said, Thursday today, I hope you had a lovely time. I know lots of kids dress up for it and whatever else, and reading is
sure,
fantastic. So brilliant. Our film is out on Monday. I will put a
absolutely.
link in the show notes to the Techflix page on Harvey Nash. You should be able to find the latest film on Monday through that link. Our guest, Gosha, as I said, Chief People Officer at Impress, is here to talk all about talent, skills, hiring, L&D, very much the themes that you will find in that film. But also, she's a fantastic people leader. And as I said, it's just great to have someone who I suppose has a slightly different view. Impress, based in Barcelona, slightly different take on the market. So that's who our guest is today. We'll get straight into the interview and stuck into it. And have a lovely weekend. Today, I'm joined by Gosha, the Chief People Officer at Impress. How are you? Thank you for taking some time to join me.
Really, my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. And how are you doing?
Yes, good, thanks, good. And you're joining me from your offices in Barcelona, right?
Yes, yes, this is our headquarter office, correct.
Not at all jealous.
Today, I was just mentioning, today is a bit rainy, but Barcelona is a beautiful location indeed.
Barcelona is a fantastic city, so
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And it's got an enviable tech scene, right?
Definitely, in the last years, it's becoming the tech hub of Europe. That's at least what we've been experiencing. We attract a lot of tech talent to Barcelona.
And we're recording in the week of Mobile World Congress. Is that something that you've been involved in, or is it just
Yeah.
noticeable that town is a bit livelier this
It is
week? Or
very noticeable. So all hotels are booked in advance, and there is a huge traffic. So it's a pain in the neck for the entire city. But a lot of companies participate. I do
yeah,
not this year. It's more for the mobile
yeah.
industry, but it's a huge event. It is.
Yeah, absolutely. I've not been for a number of years, but I have been to Mobile World Congress. And look, it's a great excuse to go to Barcelona as much as anything as we can.
Exactly. Every excuse is good to come over to Barcelona.
Exactly. Well, look, let's start by setting some context. As I said, Chief People Officer at Impress. Many of our listeners might be unaware of your business. Do you just want to set some context around what you do as a company?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, we specialize in invisible orthodontics treatments. And for those people who are not familiar with the concept, orthodontics is really about very skillfully and very artfully moving teeth. Um, and, we've been founded, or the company was founded back in 2009 with one single mission on our founder's mind to be able to deliver beautiful and healthy smiles to patients across the world, and to do it in a very, very modern way, and to make this treatment very accessible, because historically it wasn't necessarily accessible. So to do this, Impress embark on a journey of building a very strong foundation of technology. And so in our business, we combine two worlds. We combine the world of this um, physical infrastructure of orthodontic clinics with a very strong medical expertise, but with also very strong software behind it. And by software, I mean really AI powered tools. We have a fantastic team of software engineers that are developing machine learning solutions, and we invested a lot of time and effort and put a lot of thoughts into it. So that's what we do on a daily basis. And basically, we treat people, and we deliver the beautiful smiles. And maybe for the context, proudly to say that we are right now the number one provider of orthodontic treatments in Europe, and we are among top three globally. Right now, we're present in 10 countries, and we're growing.
So you mentioned that there is a barrier, that access traditionally has been the challenge. Do you just mind me asking why that is? It might be a really basic question, but it's good just to understand what that market looks like.
Yeah, so there are various reasons, I believe. So historically, again, we're talking years back, no?
Mm.
So first of all, price level or entry level when it comes to pricing, these are very these are treatments that require very skillful approach. So they're not cheap typically. Another thing is that it does require medical expertise. So typically, it's easier to find it in larger cities, not necessarily in the small ones. And this would be like the two key reasons that I personally believe might have been contributing to these treatments not necessarily being so easily accessible throughout the world.
And obviously, you mentioned that the business has been around for some time, but
Hmm.
AI is now playing a significant role. You're a business that does sit in two different markets. On the one hand,
Hmm.
health and dental, on the other hand, technology. How has that emergence of AI, of those tool sets over the last couple of years, changed the nature of the business, given you are chief people officer?
Hmm. So, I mean, when it comes to the business itself, it didn't change as much because we were from the very beginning. We knew we need to be the model company, and we knew from the beginning we need to invest in the AI solutions. So that was the baseline. From people perspective, I can tell you a bit how this impacts the today's workplace versus to some years ago. It has a huge impact because right now we are looking and we're valuing talents that feel comfortable with using AI technology. And on one hand, it is a huge positive disruption to the tech world. Obviously, we are hiring a lot of machine learning engineers and people that can build machine learning models and then take care of deep learning. But on the other side, when we think about roles that are non-tech, and historically they didn't have to care so much about AI, so to say. Right now, it's becoming increasingly more important that those traditional roles that they also familiarize themselves with the AI solutions and that they kind of become natives or AI users natives. So that's what's really changing.
Look, our film that we are releasing on Monday talks about this explosion year on year of demand for AI skills in staff. So it's a 80+% jump year on year in the
Yeah.
level of demand for AI skills. You mentioned there, obviously, that split between technical and non technical staff. Is that, I'd assume that demand actually is coming largely from outside tech roles across the business rather than necessarily in technical roles where for a number of years automation has been part of the technology stack.
Exactly. So the out of tech roles are are the ones that are most impacted. But I hope so in a positive way. It's like 2 decades ago, it was super important to be the digital native. No? So and it was essential to use the computer. And I remember, we had to test if people actually could log in and open Windows or use the Gmail, or back then it wasn't even a Gmail yet. So this was normal back then, and right now, what is the new normal is that we need to invite people and enable people that they can so naturally use the AI tech, as simple as it is. So this becomes essential.
How difficult or easy, therefore, is it to know what exactly you need to give those staff in terms of a tool set to thrive. Because the thing at the heart of our documentary is
Mhm.
this paradox between this exploding demand and yet this other statistic from our digital leadership report that says about half the organizations are not investing in their own staff. And look, there could be a number of reasons for that, but is it just that there's still a fair degree of uncertainty about actually that yes, whilst AI is in demand, what you really need to put in the hands of your staff is not particularly clear.
I guess depends also on the company and the industry the company is in. We're quite lucky because we developed a lot of our own proprietary solutions. So by default, our employees are exposed and trained on the tools and how to use them. But I would say how to ensure that we bring all the employees to the same level. Um, and if the excuse for the companies is that this has a cost to it, then I would say there is an AI that can help you reduce the cost, I guess. But it is a little bit like this. So if you want to be successful business, you cannot look for excuses. There is always a way if there is a will. And so how we do it at Impress. So on one hand, we definitely train the people on our own tools. So we ensure we have this, let's call it targeted training, where people are actually shown how to use it in the job they're doing, not just the general capacity of the tool, but real life examples, what they can do with it, and how this can benefit their work. So that's the basic level of training that we do. And the thing is, it's not just one time. It's not just the one onboarding session, because we continuously develop the tool. So we have new features, new releases frequently, and so we have to repeat the trainings and add more content. But we also realize that it is also very important that we think about the training from the broader perspective of the entire population of our employees. So targeted trainings is one thing, but it's really nice to have a kind of company-wide initiative, and we are right now testing one. We are testing a one very powerful solution with representatives from different departments in the company, and the solution will help us automate a lot of processes and the collaboration between teams. So once we finish this test run, we're going to roll this out for the entire company, and we will be training our employees also um, on the, let's call it, overall usage of this particular tool. No, so it's a continuous journey. Like, we cannot stop, and we can do this training on our own. We don't necessarily need to hire external consultants for this.
From a chief people officer perspective, how difficult or easy is it to get the balance right, I suppose, between empowering your staff to experiment and to innovate with these tools versus not wanting to give them too much scope to do something that might get you into trouble with it as an organization from a governance or a process standpoint? Because you could kind of imagine that in the same way that for years we've talked about shadow IT, you could almost have shadow L&D appearing in organizations where, yep, the potential for great new ideas, but also potential for something a little less successful, a little less wanted.
Yes, correct. So uh, there are two components to it. So three components to it. So one is to ensure that people do apply critical thinking. But obviously, we're only human. We make mistakes, but critical thinking skill is very important, and we underline this in every training we have, and we search specifically for this skill when we're hiring talent. Um, Second component to it is providing support when doing the training. So this is something that HR organization can support in the company, and ensure that we have a proper training programs, and how do they look like? Do they have structure? To what extent employees are encouraged, as you said, and who can they ask if they stuck, or who can they ask if they don't know what can be done, or to what extent it can be done. And the third component is really, wherever possible, to establish this guardrails. So, what are the best practices? What are do's and don'ts? And this typically we try to cover on two levels: the global level, when we're talking about okay overall approach to the using AI, but also during the targeted trainings on how certain solutions work and what to be how to use them properly.
Out of interest, how do you go about assessing critical thinking? Because for years within the talent space, we've talked about moving from hiring on experience versus hiring on attributes, and wanting to move in that direction. But there is that cleanliness, I suppose, that if you are hiring on experience, it's very easy to say, well, this person's worked at XYZ company. They're maybe a competitor. They've maybe got 3 or 4 years experience. Tick the box. We know that they come with X. It has its drawbacks 100%,
Yeah.
but it's clean, let's say, whereas
Mhm.
hiring on critical thinking is a bit more nuanced. So how are you going about doing that successfully?
So we have this embedded in different steps of our recruitment process. So obviously, we're asking targeted questions already during the so-called screening interviews, but for many positions, we have developed test and business case studies, so business case studies. So our candidates they have to present their skills in action. So we can actually see how they come to conclusions, how they assess data, how they question the conclusions, or how they use certain solutions in action. So we basically realize that that's the cleanest way to kind of get on the same level and
Mhm.
just see if someone applies critical thinking.
So if you're a junior, right, and we know that one of the unfortunate side of products of
Mm,
what's going on with this explosion of AI tooling is that there are fewer entry level roles right across the board.
mm,
If you are someone who's applying for junior roles and you're trying to get your first foot on the career ladder, perhaps at an organization like Impress, and critical thinking is something that you're going to get assessed on. How do you prepare for that? How do you go from a situation where all the people who are probably telling them careers advice and how to think about experience, etc., and how to build your CV, you're actually entering a world that looks quite different from the one that they're taught to think about.
mhm. You know what? I'm happy to see in various interviews that the young generation is actually coming quite well prepared for what is coming. They want to explore. They they wanna to wanna experiment with AI. Obviously, they need a bit more encouragement, and they may lack other skills. But they are already born into the digital world.
Mhm.
They know that certain things can be questioned. I even would say that the younger generation is kind of, I mean, at least in Europe, is questioning the reality more than the older generations, probably. So they have a kind of advantage there. But how they can demonstrate, obviously, is that I would give advice that explore, check what are the opportunities there. If you're applying for a certain role, check how is the specific AI solution supporting your position, whether this is ChatGPT or any other solution. How your daily tasks could be supported by it, and that's something you can impress a recruiter with, because you can talk about, first of all, how you prep for this interview. What did you check on your own? What did you learn on the way? How did you apply the solution that is available online, and in some cases for free? So this would be my recommendation. This is the first sign that someone is really curious and that someone is assessing what things can be helpful and what solutions can be helpful in their future career.
And you mentioned older staff. I suppose one of the other aspects to this is, if you're going through any kind of organizational change, cultural change within an organization, you're going to meet some resistance. And one of the things that we sometimes hear repeated in kind of conversation in the industry is whether or not it's true, people in roles might be fearful of AI because it thinks it might take away their role, and therefore they're resistant to implementing AI or
Yeah.
to experimenting with AI. How do you manage that internally? Is that something that you've come up against, and how have you won some of those more skeptical people, around and got them on board?
yeah, the resistance is supernatural. That happens. So even if we're going to put our best efforts to finding talents that are very open to change, then resistance can happen at any stage in our life or professional career. Um, so what I would say is really really important how to not even to break the resistance, but to shift the mindset is to show real life scenarios and show how this benefits the employee and in the end affect our patients. And I can give you the real life example. So in our industry, what we're doing for our patients is we are visualizing the treatment. So we actually show how the feet are moving and how the actual outcome will look like. And it's not just a video simulation. It's an actual treatment of an actual patient and actual outcome of this treatment. And it is it takes time to build it, and it requires a lot of manual data entry and checks and you name it. And in the past it was taking us a couple of days just to prep this one video. And so some experts were really spending a lot of precious time on inputting the manual data, etc., etc. So right now with the AI, they can generate this visualization in approximately 15 minutes. They still have to check it, they still have to apply critical thinking, but they experience this firsthand. So they know, wow, this is the game changer for our work. And they also see the benefit for the patients because the treatment plan or the visualization itself would be of highest quality. So once they see this and they see the benefits, they're less resistance to accept this. But this is really really important to show the benefits for both sides, kind of. No? So again, for the customer, for the patient, and also for the people that work and use the solution. This is super super important.
And look, as a people leader, we're in this fairly interesting place at the minute where yes, AI is not new, but each iteration of AI right now is actually fairly transformative. If you think about generative AI to agentic AI and what it can potentially do, and the fact that actually we're very bad at predicting what's happening, and some of these releases have really caught the industry cold.
Mhm.
Um, Going out and training your internal staff can take months, 3 months, 6 months. In that time, the landscape within which we're operating could have changed quite significantly. How big a challenge is that for you from a strategic resource point of view, making sure that you're putting your efforts where they are needed?
Probably I'm going to repeat myself, but for me, it really comes back to this core capabilities and the core values as well. It's a combination,
Mm,
because if we ensure that we have on board people who are curious, that are open minded, and they're willing to learn, and they are capable to learn, then they're going to be successful and
yeah.
they're going to be ready for whatever comes. So this is really important. And there's one more component that I want to mention. It's not really capability or skills, it's more of a value, is that if you have on board also people that care of what they're doing and that they care for the patients to whom they provide the treatment, then they're going to grow with the industry. They will be interested, they will be invested, engaged, and they will be successful for whatever comes.
Mm.
Now, from organization perspective, of course, we have to ensure that we do provide them the training and that we check what are the latest news and how can we make their life easier. And that's the role of, I would say, HR and the managers to join forces and kind of do this together. But I am not so concerned about what the future holds, because at least during my lifetime, so many things changed, and we adapted so well that I'm pretty sure we're capable of doing this again and again and again and again.
So, look, as a last question, I know you mentioned that you're not involved in MWC whilst it's going on in Barcelona this week, but undoubtedly there will be lots of conversations, probably very similar to this. And the conferences that you do go to, I'd imagine that is replicated. You can learn a lot, obviously, from talking to your peers, but I also think you can learn a lot from hearing what they're not talking about. What are the conversations that you think should be on the agenda that actually often get missed off and that we should actually be talking or spending more time talking about?
A lot of discussions around AI is about, again, what the future holds. And there is a lot of fear that the AI is going to replace us. And I think this is kind of taking the attention away unnecessarily from the potential. So when someone who is not in tech is listening to those debates, people may get increasingly scared of what's coming. And I would rather say we have to shift away from this approach and show them the opportunities. And I know I kind of repeating myself again, but at least in the circles where we have our debates, there is less conversation about indeed how to enable people with AI and how we can use them to make their life easier. And there is more debate about how fast it's progressing, and what does it mean for the tech world, and how it's going to disrupt the future. I would shift this conversation a little bit more on how to use it to the benefits of all of us.
Look, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you. Thank you very, very much for giving up some time, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Have a great rest of the day. Ciao, ciao.
Tech Talks is hosted and edited by David Savage. It is produced by Nash Squared. And we have special thanks to Lemsy for supplying music to this show.